I moved into Hawthorne Heights on a Monday morning. The building looked older than its photographs online. A 70s high-rise with that particular mix of ambition and neglect, where concrete stretches upwards and paint flakes in quiet rebellion. I carried 2 boxes pressed against my chest, feeling my breath echo in the stairwell before I even reached the elevator. The corridors were long, too long. Light bulbs buzzed overhead, each one fighting against the weight of its own flicker. Every time I turned a corner, I felt as if the hallways stretched a little further, as though the building was adjusting itself to my presence. I shook the thought away, told myself I was just tired from the move. Inside my apartment, the air smelled faintly of dust and varnish. The walls were blank, eager for my drawings and sketches. As a student of architecture, I had told myself moving here was practical. Cheaper rent, decent space, a short commute, rational reasons. But beneath them was something harder to name, an instinct. That this place carried stories, hidden in its concrete frame. That night, I met Maya. She lived across the hall, door left ajar, while she wrestled a canvas larger than herself. She laughed when she saw me watching, extroverted, messy hair, tied back with paint-stained fabric. She introduced herself without hesitation. An artist, she said. She had been here for years. Her voice carried both attachment and unease, as if she had grown used to coexisting with something she didn't quite trust. We talked about neighbors, about the city, about how the elevators always felt slow. She leaned closer then, lowering her voice. They're old, and sometimes they don't stop where you expect. I laughed politely, but she didn't. A few days later, while unpacking in the sub-basement, I noticed something on the elevator panel. Among the numbered buttons, tarnished brass and worn edges, one caught my eye. 24. The building only had 23 floors. I knew that for certain I'd studied the blueprints before signing the lease. Yet here it was, as ordinary as any other number, waiting for a finger to press it. I didn't press it. Instead, I carried the discovery upstairs, eager to mention it to Maya. She frowned, brushed paint from her cheek with the back of her wrist. I've never seen that button work, she said. Sometimes it lights up, but no one I know has ever gone there. Officially, it doesn't exist. Then why is it there? Primera? Ask it. Se surged some things in this building. Don't have explanations. Don't go chasing them. Her tone was casual, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. Days blurred as I adjusted. Classes, projects, late night sketching at my desk while the city hummed outside. Yet every time I entered the elevator, my eyes landed on the button. Its presence was subtle but magnetic. A quiet invitation I tried to ignore. Still, curiosity threaded itself through the routine of my days, stitching anticipation into the most ordinary rides between floors. One night, unable to sleep, I walked the corridors with my phone in hand. The building seemed emptier after midnight. Shadows leaned against the walls. My footsteps echoed longer than they should have. I ended up in the basement again, staring at the panel. The button for 24 was unlit, dull metal reflecting the thin glow of my phone screen. I raised the camera, intending only to take a photo. Proof, maybe. Something I could show Maya. Something that said, it's real. But as I framed the shot, the button glowed. Soft at first, 10 breakter like an eye-opening. My finger hadn't touched it. The elevator was still. The air around me felt colder, pressing against my skin. The recording on my phone caught it. The number 24 lit red against the darkness waiting, and I couldn't look away. I didn't sleep the night I caught the button on camera. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of that red glow returned bright against the dark metal, undeniable. By morning I had convinced myself it was some electrical malfunction. That explanation sat easier in my head than the thought of a floor that wasn't supposed to exist. Still, I wanted answers. Maybe that was why I volunteered to help the superintendent with his maintenance reports. My background in architecture gave me just enough credibility to be trusted with access to the building's security system. The security office smelled of old coffee and mold creeping beneath wallpaper. Rows of monitors hummed, their screens washed in grayish light. Most displayed predictable scenes. Residents coming home with groceries, a child waiting for the mailman, a custodian pushing his cart. But when I switched to the elevator feed, my breath stalled. There was Elevator 24, not just a button this time. An entire card, its door sliding open and closed in intervals like it had passengers. But when I checked the actual hall outside my apartment, there was nothing. No second elevator, just the two that had always been there, slow and tired. Yet on the monitor, a third existed, impossible and ordinary at once. I leaned closer, palms damp against the console. The timestamp was correct. The footage was live. My rational brain scrambled for explanations. A mislabeled camera, an archived feed, but the superintendent swore each monitor corresponded directly to its live channel. No doubles, no hidden archives. When I showed Maya, her face drained of color. She pressed her arms tight across her chest. "Don't go deeper into this," she whispered. "Some things here are better left alone." I wanted to reassure her, tell her it was just a glitch, but my own voice failed me. Instead, we sat side by side in the dim office, the glow of the monitors washing our faces pale. We watched as the phantom elevator doors opened once more. This time, the hallway inside was visible. Concrete, dimly lit, unfamiliar. It was not part of Hawthorne Heights as either of us knew it. Maya bit her lip until it turned white. "I've lived here for years," she said, "and I've never seen anything like that." We stayed for over an hour, waiting, watching. The feed showed no one entering, no one leaving, just empty frames of a place that shouldn't exist. I tried to distract her, asking about her paintings, her routines. She told me about sleepless nights when she painted until dawn, how the building's hum sometimes felt louder than her thoughts. In her voice, I heard something I recognized: loneliness. I confessed my own isolation, how moving here felt less like a choice and more like an escape. We made an odd pair, the cautious artist and the curious student, both orbiting a mystery we couldn't name. It was almost enough to make the room feel lighter. Almost. Because then it happened. The feed flickered, a static ripple crawling across the screen. When the picture cleared, the elevator doors yawned open. A shape stepped out. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. Maya's hand gripped my sleeve. At first, it looked like a person. Average height, shoulders slightly slumped. The figure walked past the camera, head angled away. I strained for details, face, clothes, anything, but the image distorted, like water rippling over glass. The pixels bent around the figure as if the system couldn't quite process it. No matter how closely I looked, I couldn't make out a face. Maya's voice was a breath against the silence. "Who is that?" The figure kept moving down the unseen corridor, disappearing into static. The doors closed again, sealing the secret inside. The timestamp ticked forward, as normal as ever, like nothing unusual had happened at all. I rewound the footage, played it again. The figure remained faceless, blurred, a presence more than a person. Maya turned away after the second replay, whispering that she didn't want to see it anymore. I wanted to ask her why she was so afraid, if she knew something she wasn't telling me, but I didn't. Her silence was enough. In that moment, I realized our investigation wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was pulling at something fragile in both of us, something the building had been hiding for longer than we could imagine. Later, alone in my apartment, I couldn't resist watching the recording again. Each time, the shape seemed closer, as though the blur shifted slightly toward the lens. Maybe it was my mind playing tricks, or maybe the feed itself wanted me to notice. Either way, the image stayed with me long after I turned the screen black. I kept thinking about the footage. The figure stepping out of an elevator that didn't exist, the way the lens seemed to resist focus, as if whatever came through didn't want to be seen. I told myself it could be a glitch, a distortion from old wiring or the building's outdated cameras, but the thought kept circling back like a moth to a bulb that wouldn't stop flickering. I needed someone else to look at it with me, someone who lived here longer, who might tell me I was being ridiculous or confirm that something was off. That's how Maya got involved. I showed her the recording on my laptop. The glow of the screen painted her face in pale blues, her expression shifting between doubt and unease. She leaned closer, replayed the clip twice, then pushed the laptop back with a kind of silent refusal. "Don't," she said. "I told you, Ethan. People don't talk about that elevator for a reason. It's like it doesn't want to be looked at." Her choice of words struck me. Elevators don't want. They don't hide. But she sounded so certain. I asked her anyway. "Would you check it out with me? Just once. If we see nothing, I'll drop it." She looked at me like she already regretted answering. But eventually, she agreed. Maybe because she saw I wasn't going to stop, or maybe because she didn't want me going alone. That night, we rode the elevator together. Just the two of us. The building hummed in its usual waste pipes rattling, a soft vibration of electricity in the walls. When we reached the panel, my finger hovered over the strange button. There it was again. 24. I swear it hadn't been there yesterday. A neat little square, glowing faintly like it belonged. Maya noticed it too. She reached out, then pulled her hand back. I pressed it. Nothing. No sound of gears, no shift in weight, just the same hum as before. The button glowed, but the elevator stayed put. See, Maya forced a laugh. "It doesn't work. Can we go back now?" But I wasn't ready. Not yet. We had planned for this. Earlier, I'd bought a small camera meant for home security, one with motion detection. I taped it carefully into the corner of the ceiling, angled toward the doors. Maya watched with her arms folded, impatient but unwilling to leave me alone. We rode down to the lobby, then back to my apartment. I checked the feed from my phone. The camera's red light blinked. Recording. We left it overnight. The next morning, over coffee at Maya's place, we scrolled through the footage together. Hours of nothing but empty doors sliding open and shut, residents coming and going. Then, at 2:30 a.m., the camera caught us. We watched ourselves step into the elevator. I remembered this moment clearly. We had only ridden once, pressing buttons for different floors, waiting for something strange to happen. Nothing had. We'd left annoyed, joking about how anticlimactic it felt. But the footage disagreed. On screen, the elevator doors closed with us inside. Bit passé. Then they opened again, not on the lobby, not on any floor we recognized. The frame showed a corridor lined with bare concrete. Harsh lights overhead, numbers scrolled on the walls, to blurred to re. And there we were, stepping out. I paused the video. My pulse thudded in my ears. "We didn't go there," I said. Maya's voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. "But it's us." "Look." We leaned in close. Our faces were grainy, the movement slightly off, as if the recording was slowed. Maya reached for the screen, touching the moment where her own figure stepped into the unknown hall. The clip ended there. The elevator doors slid shut. No return. The feed jumped to the next recording hours later, back to empty routine. I sat back, trying to steady my breath. Maybe it's a splice, or stop. Maya's voice cut sharp. "Don't try to explain it away. We saw what we saw." We stared at the frozen frame. Two versions of ourselves, walking where we never remembered going. The hum of the building filled the silence, and I couldn't help but feel the walls leaning closer, listening. The morning after reviewing the recording, Maya and I sat in my apartment, both silent for a long while. I had rewound and replayed the clip at least 10 times, searching for any rational explanation. Static interference, overlapping frames, camera. Glitch aside, convinced myself that some combination of old wiring and digital distortion had created a trick of the footage. But every rationalization felt brittle, like a skeleton trying to hold up a marble statue. Maya finally spoke, breaking the quiet. "Ethan, something happened. We can't pretend it didn't." Her voice trembled slightly, the vulnerability beneath her usual confidence making me lean forward. "I know, but we have to consider all possibilities. A technical error is possible. Maybe a misalignment in the feed, a timestamp issue. Or maybe the building itself is different at night," she said softly, the words hanging in the air like smoke. I studied her face, fear mixed with curiosity, a reflection of my own unease. We had been neighbors for weeks, but this shared experience made the walls between us thinner. Our conversation meandered her art, my studies. The difficulty of adjusting to a new city, the strange isolation of living in a crowded building that never felt empty. Gradually, our fears surfaced alongside our daily routines. She confessed the unease she'd carried since moving here, the whispers she thought she imagined, the fleeting shadows in her hallway at night. I admitted to my own loneliness, the sensation of being small and unseen in a city that moved too fast. We were no longer just investigating an anomaly. We were connecting over it, our shared vulnerability entwined with the mystery. Hours later, as I reviewed the footage again on my laptop, Maya's phone buzzed. She picked it up, her eyes widening. The screen showed a simple notification. Elevator 24. Active. We exchanged a glance. The building seemed to hold its breath around us. "Do you want to check it?" I asked, though my throat felt tight. She shook her head. "Not now. I can't. Not alone." But neither of us could resist. Later that evening, we approached the elevator together. The air smelled faintly metallic, heavy with the scent of machinery. The panel glowed. The 24 button illuminated as if anticipating our fingers. I reached out, feeling a pulse of hesitation, then pressed it. Nothing. The elevator remained still, quiet except for the faint hum beneath the floor. The button's glow persisted, stubborn, insistent, yet futile. Maya and I stood there, the silence stretching between us. We spoke little, but the proximity conveyed what words could not. A mix of apprehension, fascination, and trust. We were no longer just observer and witness. We were participants in something that defied explanation. Then, just as we turned to leave, faint steps echoed in the corridor behind us. Soft, deliberate. Maya froze, her hand gripping my arm. I felt my own heartbeat accelerate. We strained our ears, but the corridor was empty. Nothing moved, yet the sound lingered, pressing against the edges of our awareness. We retreated to my apartment, the building's lights flickering above. Silence enveloped us, but I could still feel the pulse of the elevator 24 through the walls. A reminder that what we had seen and heard could not be dismissed. That night, lying in my bed, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts circled the impossible. The footage, the button, the empty corridor where someone or something might have walked. Maya's face appeared in my mind, anxious and resolute. And then I thought of the notification, of those steps that vanished, leaving only the echo of a floor that should not exist. The elevator's hum seemed to follow me into the dark. We decided that night to test the elevator together. The building felt quieter than usual, the faint hum of electricity beneath the floors blending with the distant city noises outside. Our footsteps echoed along the corridor as we approached the panel. The button glowed again, 24 subtle, but unmistakable. I glanced at Maya, and she gave a small nod, a mixture of fear and reluctant trust. We stepped inside. The elevator's doors closed, sealing us in with its familiar metallic scent. The buttons for each floor lit up, the numbers glowing in their mechanical yellow. I pressed the lobby floor, and the car shuddered slightly. Maya pressed a finger to the button panel, watching the lights. Then, as if on cue, 24 blinked briefly, catching us both off guard. Neither of us had pressed it. "What did you just see?" she whispered. "I don't know," I admitted, my hands clenched at my sides. The car began its ascent slowly, the hum rising in pitch, vibrating through the floor beneath our feet. The light flickered, a soft strobe that illuminated the walls in bursts, painting them with shadows that weren't ours. The elevator jolted, mid-ride, a pause that left us suspended between floors. Then the lights went out entirely. Darkness swallowed the space, pressing against us from every side. I could barely make out Maya's silhouette, her breathing shallow, controlled, and then we heard it, our voices. They weren't just echoes. They were precise, intimate, fragmented. Snippets of conversation neither of us remembered having. Words we hadn't said, questions we had never asked, answers that didn't make sense. The dissonance made my stomach twist. I could hear Maya's voice, her laughter, the soft inflection of disbelief, paired with my own, calm and rational, yet filled with curiosity. They looped, overlapping, filling the enclosed space until it felt like we were surrounded by ourselves, trapped inside a recording that refused to end. I reached out instinctively, as if trying to touch the sound itself. My fingers found only air. Maya's hand brushed mine, and I realized we were holding onto each other, seeking the reality that this building no longer provided. The voices continued, layering, until I could not distinguish the present from the recording, the memory from the projection. The walls felt closer, and the metallic hum of the elevator deepened into a resonant pulse, like a heartbeat we were not meant to hear. Suddenly, the lights returned, harsh and bright, washing away the shadows. We were standing in the same elevator car, so we thought. The buttons glowed normally, and the numbers aligned as expected. But something was off. The lobby was below, but the elevator shuddered in a way it never had before, the panel flickering. And then we noticed the 24 button had vanished. The place we had sought, the anomaly that had drawn us here, was gone again, like smoke. Maya exhaled audibly, tension leaving her shoulders in a shuddering wave. "It's gone," she said. "Yes," I whispered, though my mind raced. For now, we rode the rest of the way down in silence, each lost in our thoughts, each listening for the phantom voices that might follow us. I kept glancing at the empty space where 24 should have been. Questions pressed against the edges of my reasoning. What was real? What was recording? What was memory? And what was the building itself reshaping our perception? By the time we stepped out into the familiar hallway, the normal hum of the city seeping in through the windows, I realized something profound. We were changed. Not by what we saw, but by what we heard. The recognition of ourselves in a reality that didn't align with our own. We had crossed a threshold, and the building had taken note, and somewhere, just beyond comprehension, the elevator waited. After the unsettling events with the elevator, I couldn't shake the feeling that answers were hiding in plain sight. The building itself seemed to be a puzzle, a network of corridors and floors that obeyed rules we didn't fully understand. I returned to my research, poring over old architectural documents, blueprints, and maintenance reports. Amid the dust and yellowed pages, I found a file labeled Sublevel Maintenance and Structural Plans, 1971. It mentioned an entire floor designed for mechanical maintenance and storage, a level that had been subsequently erased from all official records. The annotations were meticulous, almost obsessive, with lines crossing out the floor number, notes about restricted access, and cautionary remarks that hinted at unusual construction choices. I called Maya over immediately, my excitement tempered by annoying unease. "You have to see this," I said, showing her the file. Her brow furrowed as she skimmed the pages, the familiar energy of her curiosity clashing with the apprehension she always carried about the building. This makes no sense," she murmured. "Why would an entire floor be designed and then erased? It's as if it never existed." "That's exactly it," I said, pointing at the detailed scheme. "And look, here the elevator shaft. It shows access to a level that matches the 24 button, but it's crossed out, as if the architects wanted to hide it." Maya shook her head, stepping back. "Etha, maybe we should stop. This isn't safe. I've already felt the building shifting around us, hearing those voices. What if this floor is more than just a maintenance level?" I understood her concern, but my curiosity overpowered caution. "I need to know, Maya. We can't ignore it. There's a pattern here, and it's tied to the elevator." We spent the next hour reviewing the security footage again, cross-referencing timestamps. With the notes in the file, something peculiar emerged. The elevator 24 appeared on camera toward ours, always empty at first glance. But on closer inspection, subtle movements could be seen, shadows of us, or perhaps shadows of the building itself. And then I froze at one frame. Maya's image, alone in the elevator, staring directly at the camera. But she hadn't pressed the button that night, hadn't even been near the elevator. I showed her the paused frame. I swear I wasn't there," she whispered, voice barely audible. Her eyes flickered with disbelief and fear. The uncanny familiarity of her gaze in that recording sent a shiver down my spine. We both knew this wasn't a trick of the camera or a glitch. It was something else entirely. We rewound the footage, watched it frame by frame, and in one instant, her expression changed subtly. For a fraction of a second, she smiled differently. A curl of lips that I had never seen before. Almost knowing, almost inviting. The elevator hummed quietly in the footage, a vibration that seemed to extend beyond the screen, as though it could reach through the video itself. I turned off the monitor, rubbing my temples. Maya looked at me with wide, anxious eyes. What is happening in this building, Ethan? It's watching us, or it's showing us something we shouldn't see. Yes, I said quietly, voice low, and we're going to find out. The file, the footage, the vanished florid, all pointed to something beyond comprehension. The 24 button would reappear eventually, and when it did, we would be ready, even if we weren't sure we wanted to be. The elevator and whatever lay within that hidden level was waiting, and it had its own rules, not ours. I felt a tension coil in my chest, anticipation mixed with dread. Maya and I exchanged a silent look, understanding that our next move would cross a threshold from which there might be no return. The building hummed around us, alive in its own way, and the mystery of the elevator 24 was only deepening. The hallway felt impossibly long that night, stretched beyond memory. Every flickering light seemed timed to the beat of our nervous hearts. Maya and I stood side by side in front of the elevator, cameras slung over our shoulders, ready for anything. The 24 button had reappeared, glowing faintly, impossibly, as though inviting us in. I reached out, my hand trembling slightly, and Maya's fingers brushed mine. She didn't pull away. Instead, she whispered, "We do this together." I nodded, feeling a strange calm wash over me despite the tension pressing from all sides. Pressing the button, we both jumped slightly as the elevator shuddered to life. The low hum of the machinery filled the shaft, vibrating through the polished metal walls. The light inside flickered, tensed steadied, casting pale reflections of our anxious faces back at us. Maya exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that tries to push fear into the shadows where it belongs. I tried to mirror her steadiness, but my rational mind kept reminding me that none of this should be possible. The elevator moved upward, slow, deliberate, its movement heavier than any I had felt in a modern lift. The floor numbers ticked by in normal sequence 1 through 23, but each seemed to stretch on longer than the last. I glanced at Maya. She avoided my eyes, staring instead at her camera screen, framing our ascent as though that simple act could give her control over whatever lay ahead. "Do you think it will stop at 24? She asked, almost to herself. I hesitated. Rationally, I knew nothing about the elevator's true destination, yet every instinct screamed that the number would appear, that the elevator would pause or extend into a space not marked on any blueprint I had ever seen. The light flickered again, this time briefly plunging the cabin into shadow. I felt my stomach drop, a subtle shift, like the lift had passed some invisible threshold. Then, as the lights returned, a corridor stretched out before us. It was eerily familiar, yet impossible. The hallway mirrored the floors of our building's same carpeting, same flickering lights, but it was utterly silent. Even the faint hum of the city outside seemed muffled. Maya and I exchanged a glance. No words were necessary. We stepped forward together, our cameras capturing everything, documenting what our minds refused to accept as real. The corridor seemed endless. Doors on either side were identical to ours, each numbered in sequence we recognized, except for one. The door labeled 24. I reached for it, fingers brushing the metal surface. It felt colder than the other doors, almost unnaturally so. Maya stood beside me, her breath shallow, eyes wide. We hesitated for only a moment before pushing it open. The room beyond was empty, completely barren, except for a single, faint reflection of ourselves in a cracked mirror. It was impossible to tell if it was our own reflection or something else mimicking us. I felt a strange disorientation, as if the space itself were bending subtly around us. We continued down the mirrored corridor, cameras rolling, documenting every step, every shadow. Nothing moved, yet the silence pressed on us like a living thing. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but curiosity and necessity the Nederlanders pushed us forward. At the end of the hall, we paused. The elevator doors were visible, the metal cold and familiar, but now distant, almost unreachable. We stepped in together, hearts thundering, cameras ready. As soon as the doors slid shut, a subtle vibration ran through the cabin. The elevator began its descent, each floor passing without incident. Yet the weight in my chest did not lighten. The lights flickered once more, and I noticed the numbers skipping, bypassing floors that should have been below us. Finally, with a gentle shudder, we arrived at the ground floor. The doors slid open to the lobby we knew, but now it felt alien. Every detail hyperreal, every shadow deeper. The 24 button was gone from the panel. Maya and I exchanged a glance, neither of us speaking, understanding in that silence that the threshold we had crossed was something beyond comprehension. We stepped out, our cameras still recording, capturing the evidence of what might be the impossible. We stood there for a long moment, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or scream. The elevator had returned to normal, yet something in the air, an unresolved tension, a lingering echo. The cameras hummed, documenting everything, and I realized that even if no one else would ever believe us, we had the record, and perhaps that was enough. For now, we walked back toward the hall, knowing the next step, the next revelation, was waiting, and we would face it together. The air was thick with dust and a strange, metallic scent. Maya and I stepped out of the elevator, cameras rolling, our flashlights cutting through the dimness. The floor was identical to the one we lived on, long hallways peeling wallpaper, apartment doors evenly spaced, but the silence was deafening. No hum of air conditioners, no faint chatter from neighbors, only the echo of our own footsteps, amplified and distant. I glanced at Maya. Her eyes dotted around nervously, reflecting the weak light. She was the first to speak. It's too quiet, too perfect. It feels like someone set this up for us. Her voice trembled, but she was trying to mask fear with curiosity. I nodded, unable to articulate the unease settling deep into my chest. We approached the first apartment. The door creaked open under Maya's push, revealing an empty living room, furniture dust-covered, as if frozen in time. The television was off, yet the static from the screen seemed to hum, faintly. I recorded every detail, every angle. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. But I had to document this. Rationality demanded it, even as instincts screamed that we shouldn't be here. Moving down the hallway, each apartment was a mirror of our building, yet abandoned. The repetition unnerved me. The layout, the colors, even the wear patterns on the floors were exact. It was impossible. And then we saw them, recorded versions of ourselves on the cameras we had set up, moving independently, entering apartments we hadn't yet explored. Our own past actions, repeated in uncanny isolation. Maya froze. "Ethan, look." Her voice was barely a whisper. "On the small monitor, T2 of us, captured hours ago or maybe minutes. I couldn't tell. Walked through the hallway, alone, doing exactly what we were doing now, but the timing didn't make sense. Our recorded selves seemed both ahead and behind, overlapping in ways reality could not allow. I swallowed hard, staring at my own face on the monitor. My expression was calm, almost detached, yet I remembered feeling fear in those moments. This wasn't a trick of the camera. It was us, but not exactly us. Maya looked over my shoulder, her eyes widening. I could see the realization settling on her. We were being replicated here, each moment, each decision already recorded in a loop, beyond our understanding. The hallway extended endlessly, or so it seemed. We kept walking, cameras following every step, documenting the impossible. The air felt heavier, as if the building itself was watching, analyzing. Every door we opened revealed another mirrored apartment, another reflection of ourselves performing mundane, eerily identical tasks. It was like a simulation constructed from memory, yet distorted. We spoke less, each sound echoing too long. I tried to rationalize Doppelganger's projections, residual footage, but the logic faltered. Nothing in architecture, nothing in technology. explained the footage showing us moving independently, interacting with spaces we had not yet encountered. My pulse quickened. Each turn, each corridor, repeated the exact pattern of our lives, yet warped, stretched, uncanny. Finally, we reached the end of the hallway. The elevator doors were there, exactly where we had exited ours before. Relief washed over me, but only briefly. I pressed the call button. The elevator doors slid open, inviting yet ominous. Only one of us could fit comfortably inside. Space was restricted as if reality itself constrained us. I hesitated, glancing at Maya, reading her expression of fear mixed with trust and urgency. Maya's hand brushed mine. She said nothing, but her eyes pleaded. We had to make a choice. One of us would stay. One would descend. The elevator waited, patient and indifferent. Primera understood. In that moment, the full weight of the building's reality. It mirrored, duplicated, trapped, yet observed. My mind said, how had we arrived here? How could the same events occur simultaneously, yet acing? There was no answer. Only the oppressive certainty that this place obeyed rules we could not grasp. I took a step back. Maya moved forward, almost instinctively. She glanced at me, a fleeting smile of reassurance, before stepping inside the elevator. The doors closed with a soft but final click, leaving me alone in the mirrored hallway. My breath hitched, and the emptiness pressed in from every direction. The cameras blinked, recording me as I stood, frozen, surrounded by my own copies, echoes, and shadows of actions I had yet to take. I felt the pull of the building, a silent command to choose, to enter, to participate, and I realized that each corridor, each room, was a layer, a reflection of decisions, of selves multiplied. The elevator's descent was not just vertical. It was temporal, psychological, existential. And now, waiting alone, I understood the stakes. The building observed, replicated, and tested, until only one version could emerge unscathed, or at least one that it allowed to leave. The silence returned. I pressed my hand against the wall, feeling the vibrations of the building, the pulse of mirrored lives. Somewhere below, Maya moved through her own version of reality. I recorded, silently, methodically, knowing the cameras would capture every detail, every echo, every movement, every decision duplicated endlessly. And the building waited, patient and eternal, for the next choice. The hallway was silent, unnervingly so, as if the building itself held its breath. Maya had entered the elevator first, her hand lingering on the button marked 24. I could feel the hum of anticipation vibrating through the floor beneath my feet. My camera, still recording, captured every subtle movement, every hesitant glance. I stood frozen, the metal walls of the elevator shaft reflecting my own tension back at me. The doors slid shut, slowly, deliberately, leaving me alone in the dim light of the corridor. I wanted to call out to shout, but the sound caught in my throat. My own voice seemed alien, distant. I pressed my palm against the cold metal railing and forced myself to breathe, to stay rational, to keep control. But as the minutes stretched, I realized that control was a fragile illusion here. The recordings on my camera, the footage we had gathered, each frame now seemed to mock me, each image a distorted echo of what had been and what was yet to come. The elevator moved, but the hum of its machinery was inconsistent, stuttering like a skipped heartbeat. I reviewed the footage on my small handheld monitor. There were versions of us, Ethan and my overlapping, entering the elevator at different times, yet appearing simultaneously. Shadows stretched and warped across the frame, creating the illusion of multiplicity. Yet it was more than mere trickery. Tease was real. The building had a way of manipulating perception, folding time and space in ways that defied reason. I took a tentative step forward, the wooden floorboards creaking underfoot, each sound amplified in the oppressive silence. The corridors were identical to the ones on the lower floors, yet subtly wrong, almost mirrored. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting. I could almost hear Maya's laughter somewhere ahead. But when I turned, the corridor stretched empty and cold. The elevator's hum had vanished, replaced by a low, throbbing resonance that seemed to emanate from the building itself. I checked the camera again. On the small screen, Maya's image appeared, standing in front of the elevator doors, looking directly at the lens, smiling. But it was not the smile I knew. It was a smile of understanding. A silent acknowledgement of something beyond my comprehension. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, she was gone. The frame stuttered and flickered, leaving only my reflection staring back, alone. The building resumed its indifferent hum, as if nothing had happened. I wandered through the mirrored corridors, searching for any sign of her. Every apartment I passed was empty, lifeless, yet arranged exactly like our own floor. The familiarity was disorienting. I felt trapped in a loop, each step repeating the last. The cameras recorded everything, but their footage was fragmented, sometimes showing me entering rooms I hadn't touched, moving with a precision that was impossible. I was both observer and participant, caught in the building's quiet, insidious game. I was, or perhaps, time had no meaning here. The elevator returned eventually, sliding open with a mechanical sigh. But there was only space for one. My heart raced as I approached it, the memory of Maya pressing against the button vivid in my mind. I hesitated, torn between the instinct to follow and the terror of the unknown. Could I step inside and risk what I might become? Could I survive the same fate that had swallowed her? I backed away slowly, my reflection fractured in the hallway mirrors. The elevator doors began to close, and I felt a profound weight of absence. A reality where Maya had ceased to exist in the world I knew. The cameras had captured her, yes, but only as a ghostly imprint. A memory overwritten by the building's own designs. I was left alone, yet surrounded by her echoes. I walked back toward my apartment, each step a negotiation with the unseen forces that governed Hawthorne Heights. Days passed, or perhaps weeks. The building operated as usual, tenants moving in and out, oblivious to the strange occurrences behind closed doors. I tried to explain, to show the footage, but no one remembered Maya. She had been erased, not violently, but meticulously, leaving only the lingering sense of her presence. The elevator 24 remained silent, its panel blank once more. I found myself drawn to it, compelled by curiosity, by the need to understand, yet terrified of the consequences. And then, one night, alone in the dimly lit lobby, I saw it. The button 24 had returned, glowing faintly, almost imperceptibly, as if inviting me to step beyond. My hands trembled as I reached for it, the hum of the elevator resonating deep within my chest. I hesitated, knowing that pressing it would mean entering a place where reality itself was mutable, where time, space, and identity could be I wanted to stop, to turn away, yet the pull was irresistible. The camera still recording. I paused, and the doors remained motionless before me. I hesitated. The button 24 glowed, and I pressed it.